My girlfriend told me, make sure your parents don't come to our wedding, they don't fit with our status, so the next day I canceled a couple of invitations, those of my mother-in-law and my girlfriend. I will never forget the day when my future wife, smiling and with a mocking face, told me, make sure your parents don't come to our wedding, they don't fit with our status, they're poor. That day my blood boiled, but I didn't say anything to her. I had a better plan, but before that, I'll give the context of everything. When I was little, my parents were poor, those who struggle day after day so that hunger doesn't win the battle. We lived in a humble neighborhood, in a small adobe house with a sheet metal roof that heated up like an oven in summer and filled with leaks in winter. There were no luxuries, sometimes not even the basics. I remember that many nights dinner was a plate of beans with tortilla, and if we were lucky, a small piece of cheese that my mom saved as if it were gold. But they never complained. Dad would say, as long as we're together, everything else can be fixed. And Mom would nod, stroking my hair while telling me to eat slowly so I would feel fuller. They were my world. My dad, Mark, was a tall, skinny man with skin weathered by the sun. He worked whatever jobs he could find, sometimes carrying loads at the market, other times helping a neighbor with construction. My mom, Anna, was short, with small but strong hands. She washed other people's clothes, sold tamales on the corner, or collected cans to sell for a few pesos. They had no education, barely knew how to read and write, but they had something worth more than any degree, heart. And everything they did for me. My parents would skip meals so I could have something on my plate. Once, when I had a high fever and there was no money for medicine, Dad walked 3 hours to the neighboring town to borrow from a friend. He returned with a bottle of syrup and a bag of oranges someone had given him. This will cure you, champ, he told me, and he stayed up all night with Mom, making sure my fever went down. They never got married. Not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't afford it. A wedding, even a simple one, cost money they didn't have. Dad had promised Mom a white dress and a celebration with music, but life didn't give them the chance. Someday we'll do it, Rosita, he would tell her, and she would smile as if she believed him. When I finished middle school, they wanted me to continue studying, but there was no money for university. So I started working. I was 16 and got a job at a small store in the neighborhood, stocking shelves and carrying boxes. That's where it all began. The store owner, Liam, was an older man who took a liking to me. He said I had spark and knew how to deal with people. He taught me how to run the business, how to negotiate with suppliers, how to serve customers, and much more. When I turned 19, Liam decided to close the store and move to another city with his daughter. Before leaving, he told me, this place is yours if you want it. I'll leave it to you cheap because I know you'll make it grow. So with my savings and my parents, I decided to do it. It wasn't easy, but I made it. I started small, selling the basics, rice, beans, soap. Then I kept growing. The fact was that by the time I was 22, the little neighborhood store had become a famous supermarket in the city where everyone went to shop. And suddenly, I realized we weren't poor anymore. I, the son of Mark and Anna, had money in the bank. Several millions, to buy a house, a car, and give my parents something they had never had, peace of mind. I moved my parents to a big house, with a real floor and a roof that didn't leak. I bought them new clothes, a big TV, a stove they didn't have to light with firewood. But they didn't change. They remained the same, humble, kind, grateful. Dad still carved wood in his spare time, and Mom still cooked beans as if nothing had changed. We don't need more, son. As long as you're doing well, we've already won, they would tell me. And I felt like the luckiest man in the world. Until I met Tina. It was at a party of a mutual friend. I was 23, and she appeared as if she were a movie star. Tall, with long, shiny hair, green eyes that captivated you. She was beautiful, yes, but she also knew how to move, how to talk. That night she told me she liked my energy, that I was different. She wasn't a rich girl, I found that out later. She came from a normal family, the kind that doesn't have much but doesn't go hungry either. She told me things about her life, about how she dreamed of getting ahead, and I told her about mine, about how I had built what I had from scratch. She seemed interested, and I felt good with her. Everything seemed perfect. We started dating, until some time later we became a couple. We would go to dinner, go for drives in my car, she always found a way to make me laugh. She would say things like, "You're different from the others, you have something special." And I, having grown up feeling invisible in a neighborhood where no one expected anything from me, melted with those words. I wanted to give her the best, to make her feel that with me she would never lack for anything. So I invited her into my world, to meet the people who mattered most in my life, my parents. When Tina arrived, she was wearing a tight dress and high heels that resonated on the marble. She looked beautiful, but as soon as she entered, her gaze fixed on my parents. She wrinkled her nose, as if something stank, and her smile twisted into a sneer of disdain. Mom welcomed her with that warmth of always. "Oh, how good that you came, dear. Come in, sit down, I'll bring you a coffee or a little soda," she said, with nervous hands but an open heart. Dad stood up, awkward, adjusting the shirt that was too big for him, and extended his hand. "Pleased to meet you, Tina. My son has told us a lot about you," he said, with a humble smile. She barely gave them her fingertips and quickly withdrew them, wiping her hands on her dress, and said a hello that sounded reluctant. She sat on the leather sofa, crossed her legs, and looked around, not with admiration for the house, but with contempt for them. "No, thank you, I'm fine," she said, curtly, when Mom insisted on the coffee. The afternoon was tense. Mom tried to talk to her, as always, with affection. "And where are you from, dear? What do you like to do?" she asked, while putting a plate of tortillas on the table, still wrapped in an old napkin she had been using for years. Tina looked at her as if she were an insect. "From around here, nothing special," she said, dryly, and then blurted out, "Hey, are they always like this? I mean, this house is nice, but they look like they're from a ranch." She said it with a cruel little laugh, as if it were a private joke. Mom laughed, nervously, and said, "Well, yes, dear, we are simple people." Tina raised an eyebrow and muttered, "Simple is putting it mildly." Dad tried to approach, showing a small piece of wood. "Look, I make these things, it's a hobby," he said, in a timid voice. She looked him up and down, from his ill-fitting shirt to his shoes, and said, "How exotic. Looks like they don't know how to spend their son's money." I tried to smooth things over, telling how I had bought the house for them, but she wasn't listening. When we left, she got in the car and, while fixing her hair, said, "Seriously, your parents? What simple people. They smell like village." She said it with a twisted smile, as if she expected me to agree. I felt a pang in my chest, but I said nothing. I thought it was a one-time thing, that over time she would come to love them. I was wrong. After that, Tina made it clear that my parents disgusted her. She knew that everything they had, the house, the clothes, the food, came from me, and that made her look at them like parasites. "Your parents again? Let's go out alone, I can't stand to see them with those looks," she would say, wrinkling her face. Once, at Christmas, Mom gave Tina a tablecloth she had embroidered by hand. It was beautiful, with red and green flowers that had taken her weeks. "I made it thinking of you, dear, so you would have something nice in your house," she told her, with her eyes shining. Tina took it, looked at it for a second, and said, "Oh, thanks, though I don't know if I'll use it, it's not my style." She put it aside as if it were trash, and Mom stayed quiet, squeezing her hands in her lap. Dad looked at me, and for the first time I saw something in his eyes that wasn't just sadness, but disappointment. But I, like a fool, did nothing. I didn't want Tina to get angry, I didn't want to lose her. Over time, I saw that Tina hated them for what they were, humble, marked by poverty even though I gave them everything. She didn't see their love, only their rough hands, their mismatched clothes, their simple ways. And I, blinded and in love, let her walk all over them. Time passed, and one night, under the lights of an expensive restaurant she had chosen, I took out the ring I had bought and said, "Tina, will you marry me?" I asked, with my heart in my throat. She smiled, in that way that made me tremble, and said, "Yes, of course." The people around applauded, and I felt like I was touching the sky. I thought we were finally going to build something together, that she would understand what my parents meant to me. How wrong I was. 3 days before the wedding, while finalizing details, Tina called me to her house. She was sitting in her living room, with a glass of wine in her hand, looking at me with that smile that I now know was pure theater. "Hey, I need you to do something for me," she said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "Make sure your parents don't come to our wedding, they don't fit with our status, they're poor." She blurted it out just like that, without hesitation, in a tone that was half mockery, half order. I looked at her, expecting her to say it was a joke, but no. Her green eyes were cold, hard. My blood boiled, I felt the ground moving beneath me. But I didn't say anything. I nodded, turned around, and left. That night I didn't sleep. I spent it crying, thinking about my parents, about everything they had done for me. I thought about their rough hands, their tired smiles, the love they had given me without asking for anything in return. And I thought about Tina, my future wife, and the love I had for her, but also about how she had trampled over my parents. It was then that I reacted. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to be her puppet anymore. The next day, I got up early. I called the wedding planner, a serious guy I had hired because Tina wanted something classy. I told him I needed to make a change to the guest list. "Take out 2 people, Tina and her mother," I told him, with a firm voice though I was trembling inside. He hesitated for a second. "Are you sure? The bride?" "Yes, I'm sure. They won't be coming in. I'm paying, I decide." I cut him off. I hung up before he could argue. Then I took a deep breath and went to see my parents. I told them to come to my wedding, and they accepted. The wedding day arrived. The church was decorated as Tina had demanded, white flowers everywhere, expensive candles, a choir that cost a fortune. The guests, my friends and some of her acquaintances, filled the pews. My parents arrived early, nervous but happy. Mom was wearing a simple dress I had bought her, but with her usual sandals. Dad had put on the same poorly buttoned shirt, and his shoes were worn out. I saw them sit at the back, humble as always, and felt a mixture of love and rage. They deserved to be at the front, not hidden. Then the chaos began. Tina arrived in a white car, wearing a wedding dress I had paid for, looking like a queen. Her mother came behind, with a face of superiority that turned my stomach. But when they tried to enter, the security guards, to whom I had given clear instructions, blocked their way. "Sorry, you're not on the list," one said, firmly. Tina turned red. "What? I'm the bride, you idiot, let me pass or I'll sue you," she screamed, while her mother added, "You don't know who you're messing with." The guests started to murmur, and I, from inside, heard everything. I went to the entrance, in the suit I had chosen for my supposed wedding. Tina saw me and lunged at me. "What's going on? These guys won't let me in, fix this now," she shrieked, with her eyes shooting fire. I looked at her, calm for the first time in years. "There's nothing to fix, Tina. There's not going to be a wedding between us. It's over," I said, with a voice that didn't tremble. She staggered, as if I had given her a blow. "What? Are you crazy? You can't do this to me," she screamed, while her mother cut in. "You're ungrateful, my daughter deserves better than you and your filthy parents." That's when I exploded. "My filthy parents? They're worth 1,000 times more than you. They gave me everything, they killed themselves for me, while you, Tina, only dedicated yourself to despising them, to treating them badly and insulting them. Did you really think I was going to kick them out of the wedding? You know what? I don't want you near me or them ever again," I said, pointing at her with my finger. Tina collapsed, literally. She fell to her knees, with the white dress dragging on the ground, and began to cry to me. "No, please, I love you, don't do this to me," she begged, with tears that seemed more of rage than sadness. Her mother pulled her by the arm, shouting insults, but I wasn't listening to them anymore. I turned around and entered the church. The guests were in shock, but I didn't care. I walked to the altar, where the priest was waiting, confused. I signaled my parents to come to the front. They looked at each other, not understanding, but they approached, trembling. I knelt before them, with tears in my eyes. "Dad, Mom, you never had a wedding because there was no money. But today, this is for you. I want you to get married here, now, as you always deserved," I said, with a broken voice. Mom covered her mouth, crying. Dad put a hand on my shoulder, with shiny eyes. "Son, what are you saying?" he murmured. "I'm saying I love you, and no one is going to walk all over you ever again. Please let me give you this," I replied. The priest, after a moment of doubt, smiled and said, "Well, if they want to." My parents looked at each other, and Mom nodded, with a smile I hadn't seen in years. "Yes, Mark, let's get married," she whispered. The ceremony was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Mom, with her sandals and her simple dress, and Dad, with his poorly buttoned shirt, held hands in front of the altar. The priest spoke, they promised eternal love, and when they said yes, the guests applauded, some crying. I was next to them, with a full heart. Tina and her mother had gone, defeated, but that didn't matter anymore. My parents, who had given me everything, were having their moment, and I had made it possible. When they left the church, hand in hand, Mom hugged me so tight she almost choked me. "Thank you, son. I never thought I would have this," she said, between sobs. Dad gave me a pat on the back, without words, but his eyes said it all. That night, we had a simple party at home, with beans and tortillas, as they liked. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Tina tried to call me afterward, to send me messages, but I didn't respond. I was no longer her toy. My parents were my priority, and no one was going to belittle them ever again. Update 1. Hello, thanks to all who have supported me for the decision I made. 3 months have passed since the wedding day, or rather, since the day my parents finally had the wedding they always deserved. I still smile when I think about it, Mom with her worn sandals and Dad with his poorly buttoned shirt, holding hands in front of the altar, with tears of happiness that were worth more than all the gold in the world. That image stayed with me, and whenever I remember it, I feel I did the right thing. But not everything has been easy since then. Tina didn't give up as quickly as I expected. 1 week after I left her standing at the entrance of the church, she started bombarding me with messages. At first they were insults: "You're stupid, you'll regret it, you don't know what you lost, you and your parents are the same, starving lucky ones." I would read them and delete them, without responding. But then she changed her tone. She started writing things like, "Please forgive me, I was a fool, I know I was wrong about your parents, I won't do it again, I swear, give me another chance, I love you." Some days she would send me 10 messages in a row, with promises and pleas. Once she even called me, crying, saying she had changed, that now she understood how important my parents were to me. I listened to her trembling voice on the speaker, but I didn't answer. I hung up and blocked her number. It wasn't just that I didn't believe her, though, the truth is, I didn't believe a single word. It was that I no longer wanted her in my life. Tina had shown who she really was, and there was no going back. My parents deserved respect, and I deserved someone who saw them as I saw them, as giants, not as trash. So I stopped reading her messages, stopped thinking about her. For me, Tina was the past, a mistake that taught me not to betray myself or my own ever again. Life went on. The supermarket kept growing, and I focused on working and being with my parents. They were happier than ever. After their wedding, they became inseparable, as if they were really newlyweds. Mom started embroidering more tablecloths, but now for her and Dad, and she would proudly put them on the big table in the house. Dad continued carving wood, and even made a frame for their wedding photo that now hangs in the living room. "Look, son, now we're legally husband and wife," Mom would tell me, laughing, and Dad would nod with that calm smile of his. Seeing them like that filled my chest with peace. And then, 2 months ago, I met Laura. It was at the supermarket, on an ordinary day. She is the inventory manager, a girl who had been working there for months but with whom I had never spoken much. That day, I saw her checking some boxes in the warehouse, with a notebook in her hand and her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. I approached to ask her something about the stock, and we ended up chatting. I don't know how it happened, but suddenly we were laughing about something silly, and her brown eyes wrinkled in a way that made me want to keep seeing her. Laura is different. She doesn't have Tina's pose, she doesn't try to impress anyone. She is simple, but not in a way that makes her ashamed of it. She works hard, knows what it is to earn things, and when I told her my story, about my parents, about the wedding, she listened with an attention that Tina never gave me. "Your parents sound amazing," she told me, and it wasn't just talk. I confirmed it when I invited her home one afternoon. It was a month ago. Laura arrived with a bag of oranges she had bought on the way, to share, she said. Mom welcomed her with her usual hug, and this time there were no grimaces or contempt. Laura sat with us in the kitchen, drank coffee from Mom's cracked cups, and ate tortillas with beans as if it were the most normal thing in the world. When Dad showed her one of his wood carvings, she didn't laugh or look at him strangely. "How beautiful. My grandfather also carved, I love it," she said, and began asking him questions with genuine interest. Mom even taught her to embroider for a while, and the two ended up laughing as if they had known each other for years. That night, when I took her to her house, Dad told me, "That girl has a good heart, son." And Mom added, "Yes, and she knows how to love people as they are." We've been dating for 2 months, Laura and I. It's not a long time, but everything looks good. There's no rush, no drama. We go to eat tacos on the corner, walk in the park, and sometimes we stay at home with my parents watching TV or playing cards. Today, as I write this, I'm in the living room of the house. My parents are in the kitchen, laughing about something Dad said. Laura is coming over in a while. She said she would bring a cake to celebrate that the supermarket had its best month. I look around and think about everything I went through, the poverty, the effort, my parents' sacrifices, the mistake with Tina, and now this, a peaceful life with people who are worth it. I don't need anything more. It's been 2 years since my parents got married in the church that day. So much has happened that sometimes I sit on the porch of our new family home just to take it all in. Yes, we moved. Last year, I bought a piece of land on the outskirts of the city, a small farm with green fields, fruit trees, and a view of the mountains that takes your breath away. I built a house there, bigger than we needed but filled with spaces for the things my parents love. A workshop for Dad's woodworking that has real windows and proper ventilation. A kitchen for Mom with counters at the right height for her small frame and an herb garden right outside. And enough room for all of us, me, my parents, and now, Laura. We got married 6 months ago. Nothing fancy or excessive, just a ceremony in the backyard with strings of lights in the trees and tables set up on the grass. Mom made the food with Laura and her mother, who turned out to be just as warm-hearted as her daughter. Dad carved wooden centerpieces for every table, little scenes of birds and trees that guests took home as souvenirs. Laura wore a simple white dress, and I couldn't stop looking at her. Before the ceremony, I found her helping Mom fix her hair, both of them laughing about something. When Dad walked Laura down the aisle, her own father had passed years ago, I saw in his eyes the kind of pride that can't be faked. These people were family now, truly family, not just by title or ceremony but by the love they showed each other. The supermarket business has grown into a chain of 3 stores now. I've hired good managers so I don't have to be there every day. Laura still works with me, she's in charge of operations for all 3 locations, but we make sure to have time for what matters. Dinner with my parents most nights. Weekends helping Dad in the garden he started. Game nights where Mom somehow always wins at cards despite claiming she doesn't understand the rules. Tina? I heard she married a lawyer 6 months after our non-wedding. Someone with status, I suppose. I sometimes see her mother in town, her nose still held high, but we don't speak. I feel no anger anymore, just gratitude for the lesson I learned before making a terrible mistake. But life isn't just about avoiding mistakes. It's about building something worth having. Last month, Laura told me she was pregnant. We sat my parents down to tell them, and Mom cried so hard she couldn't speak for minutes. Dad just kept patting my back, over and over, his eyes wet. A child, he kept saying, a grandchild. That night, after Laura had gone to sleep, I found Dad sitting alone on the porch, looking at the stars. I sat next to him, not saying anything for a while. You know, he finally said, when you were born, I promised myself something. I promised that no matter what happened, you would know you were loved. That was all I had to give you then, not money, not education, not opportunity. Just love. It scared me, thinking it might not be enough. I swallowed the lump in my throat. It was more than enough, Dad. He smiled, still looking at the stars. And now you'll be a father. You'll give your child so much more than I could give you. No, I said, putting my hand on his shoulder. I'll give my child exactly what you gave me. Everything else is just extra. We didn't say anything else. We didn't need to. The fourth supermarket opened last month in a neighborhood much like the one where I grew up. I made sure to hire people from the area, people who needed a chance like the one Liam L. gave me years ago. During orientation, I tell them my story, all of it, from the adobe house with leaks to the supermarket chain. I tell them about my parents, about hard work, about respect. Some of them look at me like they can't believe the owner is talking to them at all. But by the end, they understand that this isn't just a job. It's a possibility. Laura developed a program to help employees continue their education. We pay for classes, arrange schedules around school, promote from within whenever we can. Investment in people always pays off, she says, and she's right. Our turnover is low, our team loyal. We've had offers to sell the business, big companies wanting to buy us out. The money would be incredible, more than I could spend in several lifetimes. But each time, I think about what these stores mean. They're not just buildings with products. They're second chances, stepping stones, places where someone like me can start with nothing and build something. So I say no to the offers, and instead, we keep growing our way. Slowly. Thoughtfully. With purpose. My parents celebrated their second wedding anniversary last month. Dad surprised Mom with a trip to the beach, her first time seeing the ocean. When they came back, Mom couldn't stop talking about it, how big it was, how the water seemed to never end. Mark recorded everything on that phone you gave him, she told me, eyes bright with excitement. Show him, Mark. Dad fumbled with his smartphone, technology is still new to him, but proudly showed me dozens of photos and videos. Most of them were of Mom standing at the edge of the water, her pants rolled up to her knees, laughing as the waves touched her feet. She was like a little girl, Dad said, with such tenderness in his voice that I had to look away for a moment. They've started taking classes at the community center. Mom is learning to read better, she can get through simple books now and reads to Laura's belly every evening, practicing for the grandchild to come. Dad is taking a computer class, determined to master email so he can send photos to Laura's family in another state. Sometimes I catch them sitting together on the porch swing, not talking, just holding hands and watching the sunset. They've worked hard their whole lives, and now, finally, they have time to rest. But they don't know how to be idle. Mom still gets up early to make breakfast for everyone. Dad still fixes things around the house that aren't broken yet, just in case. Last week, I hired a photographer to take family portraits. Professional ones, in the garden with everyone dressed up. When the photos came, there was one of just my parents standing by the oak tree, Mom's head resting on Dad's shoulder, both of them smiling with such contentment. I had it framed and hung it in the living room next to their wedding photo. Sometimes I catch Dad standing in front of those photos, just looking. From nothing to everything, he told me once, when he noticed me watching him. That's your mother's and my story. Elena Rosa was born on a Tuesday morning after 18 hours of labor. Laura was amazing, strong and determined even when she was exhausted. When the doctor placed our daughter in her arms, Laura looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. She's here, she whispered. She's really here. Elena has my dark hair and Laura's brown eyes. She has tiny fingers that grab onto yours with surprising strength, and when she smiles, which she started doing at 6 weeks, according to the baby books that's early, her whole face lights up. Mom and Dad are besotted with her. Dad carved her a crib with birds and flowers along the sides, spending months making sure every detail was perfect. Mom knitted enough blankets and tiny clothes to outfit 10 babies. They take turns holding her, singing to her, telling her stories about when I was small. You look just like her, Mom told me one afternoon as she rocked Elena to sleep. Same nose, same way of looking at everything like you're trying to figure it out. Having a child changes you. Makes you see the world differently. Makes you think about what matters, what you want to pass on. I look at Elena and think about the lessons I want to teach her, about kindness, about respect, about the value of family and hard work. About knowing where you come from and being proud of it, never ashamed. I think about Tina sometimes, about what might have happened if I'd married her. Would she have loved our child? Would she have taught Elena to look down on people who didn't have the right clothes or the right accent? Would she have kept my parents at a distance, denying Elena the chance to know her grandparents? I'm so grateful I never had to find out. Last week, something happened that I never expected. I was at the main store, going over inventory with Laura, when one of the cashiers called me to the front. "There's someone asking for you," she said, looking uncomfortable. "She's been waiting for almost an hour." I went to the front and there she was. Tina. She looked different, thinner, with shorter hair and without the flashy clothes and jewelry she used to wear. When she saw me, she stood up quickly, nervously adjusting her purse strap. "Hi," she said, her voice small. "I know I shouldn't be here, but can we talk? Just for a few minutes." I looked at Laura, who had followed me. She squeezed my hand and whispered, "It's okay. I'll finish up and meet you at home." I took Tina to my office, not sure what to expect. She sat across from me, her hands twisting in her lap. "I heard you have a baby," she said finally. "A little girl." I nodded. "Elena. She's 4 months old." "That's a beautiful name." She looked down. "I'm happy for you. For your family." There was an awkward silence before she continued. "I'm getting divorced. Fernando, my husband, he wasn't who I thought he was. It doesn't matter. It's over." I didn't know what to say, so I just waited. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About how I treated your parents. About what I asked you to do." She looked up, her eyes wet. "I was horrible. Cruel. I can't believe I was that person." She wiped her eyes quickly. "I'm not here to try to get you back or anything like that. I know you're happy, and I'm glad. I needed to apologize. To you, and to your parents if they'd ever be willing to hear it. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I understand now how wrong I was." I studied her face, looking for the manipulation, the angle. But all I saw was exhaustion and regret. "What happened?" I asked. She gave a bitter laugh. "Life happened. My high-status husband turned out to be cruel in ways I never imagined. His family treated me like I wasn't good enough, no matter what I did. And when everything fell apart, all those status friends disappeared. No one helped. No one cared." She took a deep breath. "My mom died 6 months ago. Cancer. At the end, it was just me taking care of her. No one else showed up. I kept thinking about your parents, how they raised you with so much love. How they would do anything for you. How I had looked down on that, as if it wasn't worth anything. I felt a complex mix of emotions, pity, sadness, even a strange sense of closure. I'm sorry about your mother," I said genuinely. "And about your marriage." She nodded, standing up. "Thank you for listening. That's all I wanted to say. I won't bother you again." As she turned to leave, I found myself saying, "Tina." She looked back. "People can change," I said. "I hope things get better for you." She gave me a small, sad smile. "You always were too kind. Your parents raised you right." Then she left. That night, I told Laura and my parents about the visit. Laura listened thoughtfully, then said, "People sometimes have to lose everything to see what matters." Mom, always compassionate, asked, "Is she okay? Does she need help?" Even after everything Tina had said and done, Mom's first instinct was still kindness. Dad put his arm around her and said, "That's why I love you, Rosita. You always see the person behind the pain." I thought about reaching out to Tina, offering some kind of support. But in the end, I decided not to. Some chapters need to stay closed, even if you wish the characters well. Elena is crawling now, getting into everything. Laura has gone back to work part-time, and Mom watches the baby on those days, teaching her Spanish songs and letting her play with pots and wooden spoons on the kitchen floor. Dad is building a playground in the backyard, with a swing set and a little playhouse. For when she's bigger, he says, but we all know he can't wait. The business continues to grow, but I'm careful to keep it manageable, sustainable. I want time for my family, for Sunday dinners and Saturday morning pancakes and bedtime stories. I want Elena to know her grandparents the way I did, as the center of her world, the people who make her feel safe and loved no matter what. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I think about the long, winding path that brought me here. The poverty, the struggle, the mistake I almost made, the decision that changed everything. I think about that day in the church, when my parents finally got the wedding they deserved, and how it seemed to set right something that had been wrong for too long. I don't know what the future holds. But I know this, whatever comes, we'll face it together, this family we've built. Not because of money or status or appearances, but because of love, the real kind, that sees you at your worst and stays anyway, that sacrifices without complaining, that never wavers no matter how hard things get. That's my parents' legacy to me, and it's what I hope to pass on to Elena. It's what makes us rich, in all the ways that truly matter. Mom says it best, in her simple way. Family is family, she tells Elena as she rocks her to sleep. No matter what, family is family. And in those words is everything I need to know.